Good evening from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida for the post-launch news conference for STS-126, mission of the Space Shuttle Endeavour to the International Space Station. I'm David Mold from NASA Public Affairs. With us tonight is the Administrator of NASA, Mike Griffin, Associate Administrator for Space Operations, Bill Gerstenmaier.
Good evening.
Mission Management Team Chairman, Leroy Kane.
Hi, good evening.
And Launch Director, Mike Leinbach.
Good evening.
We'll start with opening remarks from each of these gentlemen, and then we'll go straight to your questions. And now, NASA Administrator Mike Griffin.
I don't have any opening remarks. It was a great launch, great team. Thanks for being here to watch it with us.
Bill?
Again, I'd like to thank the KSC team for giving us a great launch. What a great attitude this team has. It was a little disappointing to us when we had to roll back for Atlantis, but the team just had an awesome attitude. I was over in the VAB, and if you haven't been over in the VAB, you need to go over there and see what's going on. And we've got the stack there with waiting for discovery. We've got the other stack started, and then across the aisle is the Ares 1-X hardware that's starting to come together. So what an amazing feat that this KSC team is doing. They're juggling multiple vehicles. They've been moving things around. Everything we've asked them to do, they've done, and they've done with a smile. And it's just an awesome tribute to the team down here at KSC. The ISS team is ready to go to work. As you know about this mission, it's a pretty exciting mission, pretty challenging both on the inside of the space station and also on the outside with the Solar Array Alpha joint. It'll be very interesting to see how all that comes out. When we did the flight readiness review, this team is actually oversubscribed for hours. There's more hours required to do the work than we have in the timeline. And I was asked, why do we do that? And I only do that because I have such a mature team. You don't give a team a challenge and they would fail by trying to rise to that challenge and continue to work beyond what they need to do. But when you have a really mature team, they know when it's getting tough and they're starting to push too hard, and they'll back off to the right amount. So we've done the right thing. We've got a couple extra hours here. We'll see how the team does with the water processor and see how things go on station. The other thing, this is a great time for Space Station. I think it's really becoming real. The 20th of November is the 10th anniversary of Space Station. We're starting to do lots of research on Space Station. This new equipment that we bring up, we talk about doing the home improvement and getting the space station ready. It's really about getting the research facility ready and getting our crew members up there, increase the crew size to 6 so we can really start utilizing the space station. And I think it really is the first step in exploration, the first step in the transition. As you saw today, we arranged to have the moon out there, and that's so you could see the shuttle. You could see the shuttle launching, and as it went past the moon, that's the perfect analogy of transition. So that's the shuttle program, going to space station, being the first step in transition, first step in exploration. So thanks for coming.
Thanks, Bill. It's really great to be here. I can't. There's no way I can follow up and do better than the moon comment. So I'm not going to try. But I will tell you that this, anytime you do any kind of operation with this team, it's just a fantastic experience. Very few things that we do beat a night launch like you saw tonight, and it was just remarkable right up and down the line. Pretty much from the time we got through the flight readiness review process through the final completion of work that we had to do between then and our Launch -2 mission management team meeting, all the way through that, through the launch countdown procedures of the day today. Just an absolutely clean, flawless execution by the whole team. There were very few things for us to work on as a mission management team, and that's the way we like it. We had one very minor procedure waiver. We had one relatively minor launch commit criteria deviation, pretty standard kinds of things for us to disposition. We really didn't have a lot to do today as a mission management team. So my hat's just off to the entire team. We're off to a great start on what's going to be an extremely exciting, very complex and challenging mission for us. So this is just the beginning for us, and we're really looking forward to a great mission. So thanks for being here. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay. Well, thanks, Leroy. I had hoped to come over and talk to you all about having absolutely no problems during this launch countdown, and indeed that was true until about 15 minutes out from launch. But the countdown itself really was very, very clean. The weather came in for us, and the only issue we really worked, of course, was the white room door issue at the very end, and And we did a really good on-net discussion about that, convinced ourselves that we were safe to fly and that wouldn't cause any potential damage to the orbiter if we had to re-extend that arm. And we watched it on OTV during the retract sequence, and it performed exactly as we expected. And so we came to the right conclusion and pressed through the hold at the potential hold at T-minus 5 minutes and counted on down. So hats off to the team, the guys who saw that issue on camera and brought it to our attention. Hats off to the quality inspector who came up to me after launch and said, "Mike, I'm the guy who left that pin out." And so, you know, it's a testament to the team that when we do know that we made a mistake, we own up to it and we'll go out and we'll fix that next time, and I guarantee we'll never see that issue again. So, again, we convinced ourselves we were safe to fly, and that's exactly what happened. So it was a great count, and I'm very, very proud of this launch team. Thanks.
Okay, let's go to questions now. Please wait for the microphone, identify yourself and your affiliation, please. We'll start with Irene.
Irene Klotz with Reuters. Congratulations. Mike, was it close at all, the discussion? It seemed just when you're going around the net, it seemed a little uncertain for a time there that you'd be able to go ahead.
At the very beginning of the discussion, it was uncertain, sure, because we didn't know exactly what we had. We had the closeout crew chief come on the net with us. He went over to the operations support building and looked at the issue on a camera. And he was convinced that the configuration would support a launch. And I know Travis Thompson's our chief for the closeout crew team, and he does a great job. And when Travis says it's good to go, then you can virtually take that to the bank. We did ask our arm operators their opinion of it. We asked safety their opinion of it. And we all came to the same conclusion that if that panel had swung out, it would have been stopped by that extra piece of handrail, essentially, that's there on that particular purpose. It's there for a reason, to stop that panel from swinging too far out. So it was never an issue. We just needed to understand it fully before we gave the go to press on.
And are you expecting to see any damage when you're able to get out to the pad?
You know, we see damage every time after a launch, and the orbiter access arm received some damage. It did vibrate around as we expected when the SSMEs and the SRBs passed by. But as we expected, when we started up the main engines, the thing we were trying to protect for on the pad was the on-pad abort. That's the most critical thing we do here at the Kennedy Space Center. And the vibration level during just the SSME start is very, very low in that white room. And if the SSMEs had shut down, we would have been able to re-extend the arm and the crew could have gotten out perfectly safe. So again, it took us a minute or two to work ourselves through that issue, but there was never a doubt in my mind we did the right thing. It was absolutely the right thing to press on tonight.
Bill.
Hi, Bill Horowitz, CBS. Two quick ones for me. Leroy, with an on-time launch, and assuming there are no systems issues, I assume you will give an extra day as a mission management team, or you would think so at this point anyway. And for Bill Gerstenmaier, is there any update on the status of test and checkout of the Hubble backup computer system that they're working on at Goddard, and where you stand in terms of maybe being able to make May? Thanks.
Well, let's see, Bill, for the mission extension question, we are in very good shape from a consumable standpoint with the on-time launch. So I fully anticipate that we'll have a capability to extend the +1 day. Our going-in plan has been that we would do so if all of the things were equal once we got there. So I anticipate we will be able to, and that we will make a decision to extend. However, we won't do that officially until we're several days into the mission and get past the EVAs, and at that time we'll make a decision about extending 1 day. But I anticipate we will be able to, and that we will still want to, and that we will.
In terms of the Hubble equipment, they're off checking it out now at Goddard. They told me that they would have a pretty thorough investigation completed by December, and they know exactly where the box stands. But their initial check out of the box shows that it's a better box than the one that's currently on the Hubble telescope now. So if worst case occurs and they can't actually repair the box or get it in any better shape than it is right now, it looks like it would be a viable box that we would go fly to repair the Hubble that would give us an ability to do that. So what that tells me is we have a pretty high chance of making May. We'll do no harm to the box we've got. The Hubble team will assess that, verify what I just told you, and make sure that it's really right. We'll get a confirmation of that in December. If they can improve it, make it a perfect box, fix it, then we'll have it ready for May. If they can't and they determine that the schedule doesn't fit, they'll make a decision about whether that's really better than the box that got on orbit, and we're more than likely would fly that box the way it is right now in May. So I think there's a pretty good probability we'll be looking at having the Hubble equipment ready to go fly in the May timeframe.
Okay, let's keep going on down the wall to Todd.
Todd Halverson of Florida Today. I wanted to follow, if I could, first for Mike. I never quite understood which door we were talking about in this whole situation with the back and forth. Could you describe what the door was and what its purpose is? And then I have a follow.
Sure. The door in question, at the end of the white room, the orbiter access room is the white room, and it butts up against the orbiter with some dock seals. They're Herculite seals that inflate with simply pad air. And it's that frame that the dock seals mount to that was in question. That was the frame that folds in and out. And when it's in the extended position, it's parallel to the side of the orbiter, and then we inflate the dock seals to push the seals up against the orbiter to create that seal to have the environmental chamber that we need. And so it was that frame. It's not really a door. It's that frame that holds the dock seals that wasn't fully latched in the retracted position.
Okay, thanks. That helps. And for Gerst, I know that the spare Hubble unit that you have was a ground test unit, I believe. Could you tell me what the initial testing has shown in terms of why or what might not be nominal with it? In other words, what is not quite right with it?
Again, it's probably better to address it to the Goddard folks and the SMD folks, but I think there's an intermittent on one side. One side is perfectly fine. The other side operates sometimes and then doesn't operate exactly the way they expected it to some other times. So it's not a hard failure, but it's an intermittent failure on the other side. And that data is probably about 3 weeks old, so you probably ought to check that with the Goddard team just to make sure that that's the latest, because they've been troubleshooting for the past 3 weeks.
Mark Carreau from the Houston Chronicle. I just wondered if there was anything in the imagery early on debris that raised any concerns, if you're chasing anything specific at this point.
I went over and looked at the video, and we didn't see anything. The things that'll be good is when we get the new flash cameras that you saw those work from the bottom of the orbiter. We'll get some pictures of the external tank, and we'll get to see if we see anything there. One other small piece of trivia is, this tank has the titanium brackets that hold the 17-inch feed line. It turned out that this was a special weather day for us, that those brackets performed exceedingly well. Typically with our old brackets, the aluminum brackets, we would have seen hard ice in some regions on the tank, and we didn't see any ice at all. So this, if you had to pick a weather condition that matched the new design, this was the weather condition that showed how good the design was. So we didn't even have to talk about some ice on those brackets just because, again, we got the right weather conditions, but the brackets performed exactly the way designed. So we're starting to see some aspects of the new design on the tank start to work exactly as they're performed, or supposed to perform.
Pat Duggins, WMFE and NPR, probably for Mr. Gerstenmaier. As far as the Sarge repair is concerned, I mean, how confident are you that this is going to completely lick the problem, or is it going to be like an ongoing repair situation, and how fixed does it have to be?
Again, the plan is to go ahead and do the repair, and we'll see what we get. We'll actually rotate the solar array alpha joint on orbit after the repair is done. We have accelerometers on the truss. We'll get that data back. The teams will look at it, and then we can say how good the fix is, what it did for us or not. So, again, our plan is to go do the best we can with the tools and the equipment we got up there, and then we'll go actually activate it and see what condition it's in, and then we'll make an assessment and be able to tell you how it's performing.
Thank you. Tarek Malik with Space.com and Space News. And I have a question for Bill and whoever else would like to answer. This launch comes as the fourth of the year, the most since 2002, and during the 10th anniversary of the space station. I'm just kind of curious to how you're kind of feeling now that you've hit this flight rate. There's a more ambitious flight rate next year, and it seems like a special time for station construction. So, thank you.
I think that the mood of the team and the folks I talked to, this is a great time to be here. This is exactly what we're in the business for, to fly and operate. The things you don't get to experience is, the water processing system. It's probably been in a development for at least 15 years. And I've worked with some of those folks even from the beginning. there were some tough times in the water reclamation system in the design world. This hardware doesn't come together easy, and then you see it show up on flight, and I think activation, I'm sure, will have its own challenges. I don't expect it to go exactly perfect, but we'll learn from it. But to see all that hard work over multiple years come to fruition, and see the joy in the team members' eyes that when they actually see this thing they've dedicated 15 years of their lives, many weekends, many nights, many hard discussions on, to see all that come to work and fruition is a pretty special feeling, and it's something that I think is somewhat unique to this business, and it's great when we see it all come together. So it's neat because it's not just one team that's feeling the excitement. I think I see it in multiple areas. I see it in the new Constellation team with their hardware. I see it in our shuttle team as they're getting ready, and I see it in the space station team. So it's all of NASA, not just one particular instance that's recognizing that this is a pretty special time to be in the agency.
Okay, Mike.
Mike Schneider, Associated Press. A question for Mr. Leinbach. One more question about the wide room door. Is this going to require any review of procedures with the closeout team, or any disciplinary action in any way?
Review of the procedures, probably, although this is the first time this has ever happened, and so I'm sure the procedure is well written. Again, the individual came up to me after launch and said, "Mike, I'm the guy that was responsible for that mistake," and so disciplinary action, absolutely not.
What did he do that was wrong? He did not do.
He did not install a pin to physically hold that frame back up against the south wall of the orbiter access arm.
Okay, up here in the front, please.
Randy Siegel, WSTU Radio, for Mike Leinbach. Mike, the fondue fire, from your first look, did it hold up? Everything seemed to be the way it's supposed to be.
Well, that's a good question. Did anybody else look at the flame? I didn't see anything. I apologize.
Flame trench was not first on my list of concerns, to be honest with you.
We'll review the data from the video as best we can, but of course the lighting conditions were not as good as they would be for a daytime launch. But we have a lot of good lighting out at the launch pad, so we'll take a look after the fact and do our normal, very thorough and rigorous review of all the video and the stills.
Okay, Craig.
Thank you. Craig Cavalt with Aviation Week. Looking toward maybe extending the flight rate just a bit. Where are you in terms of outlining a plan for bringing in the alpha magnetic spectrometer and a flow from both KSC and a project point of view?
Yep, we're looking at all that overall. You know, we've kind of identified that next February we got to start doing some manifesting stuff if we want to go fly the alpha magnetic spectrometer. So we'll start thinking about and start planning and start some of those more detailed mission planning activities in February and see how all that comes together. But we're still in the process of you know, looking at options. We've protected the option all along, and we'll kind of continue the same philosophy. We'll protect the option to fly AMS if we get the funding, and we've got the authorization that says we're supposed to go do it. So we'll figure out the right thing to go do, and we'll get some decision made next year, and then move forward.
Jay.
For Dr. Griffin, I understand that we have a study group out looking for possibly extending the shuttle. I know that President-elect Barack Obama has talked about possibly 2 more shuttle missions. And I was speaking to Jeff Hanley yesterday, and Jeff said that he feels comfortable that they can make a July 2014 launch with Orion if they have what they need, i.e. the mobile launch platform, et cetera. Where are we on the studies on that now? Is there any more you can tell us where we are, or what?
Well, maybe just a little, Jay. We have, I asked for 2 studies, given some of the comments that were made during the presidential campaigns about trying to do what we could to minimize the gap and reduce the period where we would not be able to put our own astronauts into orbit. We can approach that from 2 angles. And the first of those, obviously, is to extend the shuttle a little bit. And the second of those is to look for places where we could accelerate the development of Ares and Orion. None of those are free, but what our job is to have the facts available such that if the new president or the new Congress desire to change the existing policy, that NASA knows what it takes to do that. So the data's not in yet, and I do not want to prejudice the conclusions that the team will come to. I think they will surface the most expeditious means by which the shuttle might be extended for a time, and similarly the most efficacious ways by which Orion and Ares might be brought in. Now, with regard to the latter, yeah, I've talked to Jeff and to Doug Cook and Rick Gilbrick as well, and I think we could pull Orion in a little bit and Ares in a little bit with some additional funding. One of the first things we would likely do is we'd insert what we might call an Ares 1X prime flight into the sequence, and we'd use that for a high altitude abort and the first test of the 5-segment booster. That'd be one thing we could do. If we could get the high altitude abort out of the way early, get the 5-segment test out of the way early, then the first flight of the actual Ares 1, when an engine became available for it, we might be able to take an uncrewed vehicle all the way to orbit. So we could really make some ground up with that kind of a flow. And there's other stuff we do. Again, I don't want to get too far out on a limb. I don't want to get ahead of the teams that I've asked to do the work, but I also do want to convey to you all a feeling that we are ready to tackle head on the task of narrowing the gap between shuttle retirement and Ares and Orion deployment if the newly elected nation's policymakers want us to do that.
Bill.
Yeah, Mike, one more from me on six-person.
Mike Weinbach.
No, Mike, you Mike.
Okay.
I mean, as long as you're here and all, right? So,
Thanks, Bill.
Going to 6-person crew, obviously, is what this mission lays the foundation for. And I guess next May 25th is when the Soyuz would launch with that 3-person crew that would boost it to 6.
Right.
I know nobody's got a crystal ball, but when you look at shuttle retirement in 2010, assuming that happens, and the resupply demands for a 6-person crew, I mean, they're pretty extreme. And given the economic turmoil in the world, do you have any concerns that the Russians, I know you said the other day when they say they're going to do something, they do it, but do you have any concern that the Russians can actually supply 6 people for several years, given what else is going on in the world?
Well, they're ramping up Soyuz production. They certainly have had notice of this. This is something we've had in the planning for years. I have talked to them personally, and I know that they are, I would say, appropriately concerned about stepping up their flight rate, but they're pretty good at what they do, and they're paying attention to it. So I guess what I say is we rely on the fact that they have, in fact, always been able to do what they said they would do, and that we go down the road we've planned. And, you know, Mother Nature will tell us if we're not quite able to do it, and we'll go to Plan B. But right now, I say we move down the path, take our plans forward the way we've been going, and let's make it work.
And you remember, cargo comes from a commercial crew cargo contract, which we're going to try to award either at the end of this year or January. So the cargo piece is going to come from the U.S. commercial sector, and that's a key piece to what you described. The crew transportation is what Mike talked about, but there's also the cargo side, which we're counting on the commercial sector to help provide for us.
Absolutely. And then we also have ATV and HTV from our Japanese and European partners. So I don't want to sound like we think everything's a slam dunk. It's not. It's a tough business. I say that all the time. But it's a tough business that we're doing pretty well at right now, and we're gonna keep pushing.
Todd.
Todd Halverson of Florida Today for Mike Griffin. I was wondering if you could elaborate on how much you could draw in or accelerate the Ares Orion development if you added on an Ares 1X Prime mission.
Well, that's just one tool available to us, and we'll have others, and when that study work is done, we'll share it with you. We're not keeping secrets. We're just not done. But In talking to Jeff Hanley, talking via BlackBerry just today, where we kind of think we are is that with if the President-elect and the new Congress chose to try to pull in the schedule on the new systems development, that we could maybe fly in very early 2014. That's where we think we are right now. Again, I don't want to get out ahead of the team, you know, and as we keep digging on stuff, in 15 minutes we could find something that invalidates that. But that's kind of where we are right now, and we're working to prove all that and to produce the price tag for it. We got a great team here at NASA, and they're working hard on just those questions. I guess the Mike Leinbach or me that dodge didn't work, huh? I got to think of something new.
Worked for me.
Well, that's you.
Greg Dobbs with HDNet Television. Two-part question about water regeneration. Part one is it fair to say that if it doesn't work, as you hope it'll work, that you cannot ramp up from 3 to 6 on station? And part two is to ask, what is your confidence level that once you get to 0G with that system, it will work, even though you've tested it 100 times on the ground?
I guess what we did, if you think about it, is we put this mission well in advance of when we're going to increase the crew size in May. So this gives us essentially kind of a proven process where we're going to actually spend 90 days of looking at water samples. We're going to try to get some water samples actually on this current shuttle flight. That's one of the reasons we might extend, to make sure we get the proper water samples down. And it's not only the system, but the plumbing on board station. You know, we have to actually run the water through the plumbing and grab a sample out of that plumbing to make sure any of the material, the metals, didn't leach out into the water that could cause a concern for the crew. So, you know, all this equipment goes up has got to be thoroughly checked out. So this is a commissioning period over the next several months to make sure it's ready. And then we tried to put a shuttle flight in between when this occurs and when the crew size increases. So if something doesn't work exactly right, we can fly spares up. The ECLS team probably flew almost all the spares they could find on the ground to repair the system up with this flight. So we added the extra MPLM space. If you remember, we put a lot of extra spares in there. So they are fully ready to activate and take time to get it done. So I'm pretty confident overall we'll get it up and running. It may take a couple months, but we have time on space station, and we've got the time in the schedule. It was planned that way, and we'll get it up and operating. So I think we'll be there. If it doesn't come up and operate, we've got some contingency cases. We can use water from the shuttle. Our water inventory happens to be very high on station now. It may not impact the ability to increase the crew size to 6. It depends what the particular failure is, when we would get it back. So again, I think we have a pretty sound plan to logically increase the crew size, but it again shows how much preparation has to go into this work. We don't just come up with the system and then increase the crew size. It takes this 6-month period to really get things checked out and ready to go before the crew can actually start using it.
Okay, for all your follow-up questions, Mike Griffin has a follow-up answer now for your question, Todd.
There was something I meant to mention and forgot, Todd. I enjoy talking about flight tests and how we might alter the sequence with the right amount of funding to do it. But, you know, one of the most pedestrian items that is one of our tent poles on the Constellation program is quite literally the pedestrian thing of ordering the long lead parts. Right now, on our critical path is simply the funding available to order the long lead parts that we know we will need, irrespective of the final details of the various designs that we're doing. And so that, too, is one of the things that is surfacing in our look at what it takes to accelerate Constellation. The most pedestrian thing you can do is start buying the parts.
Further questions? All right, then we got at it under half an hour. That's great. For details on the mission as it goes along, stay tuned to NASA Television or the website www.nasa.gov. Thanks and have a great evening.